Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Folks, we have a lot to talk about. And, you know, we had this weekend, we had a great time. We participated in what's called a silent protest. And my gosh, it was very well attended. It was prescient. We had a lot of people talking. A lot of people gave some good information. So I got that all cut down for you guys to see. I think you're going to like it. So anyhow, let's get busy and get the program started. What's the title of the show today? The George Floyd murder is changing white America and black professionals. Oh, what? That sounds kind of crazy, right? But it is so. And, you know, we're going to talk about that as we go along. George Floyd is changing a lot throughout the country, mostly for good. The horror of what occurred has finally made many white people listen to racism by cop complaints of POCs. George Floyd could not have imagined the impact his death is having, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. In the U.S., the horror of the method in which he died, seen throughout the internet and TV, has shocked white America. The brutality is one many thought they left behind in the slavery era and in the Jim Crow days. That's what they thought. But you know, some people still want to bring a lot of these things forward, right? That is the name of the game. Bring it forward because that is how we were reared. That is what's in the bowels of our minds. But the murder of George Floyd has also changed a particular sect, the black professional. The timid ones are slowly making their hidden disgust public. They're no longer allowing themselves to be tools, the special chosen ones, the ones that are in the long run used against the masses. If they could, why can't you? In as much as we'll hear one of the professionals say, take your knee off of my neck. Then, of course, there's little George Floyd can do about Candace Owen and other black sycophants of the right. There's nothing he can do about them. There will always be those who allow themselves to be used as tools. It's not only black folk that allow themselves to be used as tools at times. Everybody in some sect at some time. Thank you so kindly, Mr. Dan Engelstad gave us our first shout out of the night, our first super chat of the night. Thank you so kindly, Dan Engelstad. So very few. By the way, before you are moving progressive media forward. Thank you so kindly. That is how we are going to do it. But yes, as it turns out, right? Every sect, every group, every class, every ethnicity have always gotten people in that particular modal to be their sycophants so that they can continue doing the ills that they do. We can talk about that as we go on, but all together, folks, we're going to have a good program. Thank you so kindly to all of you that are out here. Dan Engelstad, AVQ, Michael Rudnin, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started with the first video. The first video came from Ali Velshi. I sent Ali Velshi this he did this little piece that I found like superb. Take a look at it. Tell me what you think about it on the other side. This morning we had a silent protest for George Floyd in Kingwood, Texas. Kingwood is a very, very red area, very Republican, and people are generally in many instances racially insensitive, without many of them without knowing, some of course not. But I got today in our protest. Of course, it was a mostly white protest, and interestingly, a lot of what Ali Velshi asked for in this particular piece that I'm going to play is what I actually saw and what I actually heard.
In a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. Angela Davis said that in 1983, but it's a sentiment that's a top of mind for me now, and maybe for you too. Another senseless killing of a black person at the hands of police has enraged America. Bad, but I don't believe all police are bad. I was in Chicago on Tuesday when a white police officer took a knee. You've probably seen video of police officers across the country doing that or marching alongside protesters. And even among those who don't, there are many police who put their lives on the line to serve and protect. But if you are white, the statistics prove that you do receive better treatment from the police. White America needs to come to terms with the fact that we live in a racist society and that there are bad cops. Police brutality is real. Disproportionate police brutality against people of color is more real. The relationship between those two things is no mystery. We all have biases. We can all overcome our biases. But if you have the power that police have, and your biases are not checked, they can be lethal. So let's name the problem and fight it. It's not enough to not be a racist. If you're the recipient of unequal benefit from the police, it is not enough to think of racism and police brutality as unfortunate parts of America's history with which we have reckoned. It is not history, and we have not reckoned with it. It's time for us all to get uncomfortable, to demonstrate our support for real change and to act on it. We have to push ourselves to dismantle decades of systemic inequality so that we can move forward. That movement out there in the streets is America's movement. It is our movement, all of ours. And it's not about all lives matter or white lives matter or blue lives matter, because all and white and blue are not subject to systemically entrenched and often fatal racism. Now is the time to lean into this, whatever that means for you. Lean in until it hurts. That's how you know you're doing it right. Change is hard. Injustice is wrong, and protest, what this country was built on, is noble.
Protest is noble, and I tell you what, after speaking to the organizer of the event today and saying, do you think this time is different? He said, yes, he thought this time is different. America, in looking at Chauvin, the way he murdered that guy, and looking into the camera with his eyes, and America denying for decades, for years, for centuries, that somehow our police officers, our leadership treats people of color with different types of regards. They saw it with their own eyes, because it wasn't a split-second gunshot. It was a methodical murder that took 9 minutes. And I think that probably flipped a switch in several people's lives. And the polls say that most 76% or somewhere in that vicinity of Americans believe that the protests are justified. They don't believe it's being taken out of context, out of board. They do believe now, by a large majority, that in fact we have a racial problem, racism problem. And acknowledging a reality is the first thing to start creating solutions. And what I saw in our protest today, and listening to those people who spoke at our protest, it was great to see that these people were pretty much doing what Ali Velshi was talking about, leaning in, but not only leaning in where sometimes it becomes uncomfortable. But you know what? That is how you get change. All right, folks, I hope you like that. Now, anyway, folks, we have this new number to call in, 346-248-7799, and then there's a code 254-600-9091. We have the link on the top of the page where you can go ahead and figure out how to do it. Anyhow, I want to welcome Norman Reynolds. Welcome aboard. Michael Rudnin. Welcome aboard. Dennis McLaughlin. Welcome aboard. From Philly, Norman's from Houston. Michael Rudnin from New York. Dan Engelston is from, you didn't tell me where you're from, my guy. He says, I'm an old white guy. George Floyd sadly didn't shock me. So many others have died. You are so right. You are so right, El Senor Engelstad. AVQ is here. Michael Rudden, and I mentioned Michael Rudden already. Anyhow, here's the deal. Earlier, you heard me mention in the previous piece that the organizer, Dr. Tice, went ahead and spoke about why he also thought this was different. Let me go ahead and play his interview that I did with him at the event because I think you'll like the words that he had to say. Here he goes. Dr. Tice, you're the organizer of this particular event. Tell me, first of all, why did you decide to do this?
I felt I had to do something.
Mm-hmm.
And
when you say you felt you had to do something, this is not a new thing. What made it so different this time? I noticed actually we're getting a lot of participation all over the country. Why do you think this time is so much more important than all the other times? You said when you were researching, you found a hell of a lot more people than you thought you would have found.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is movements develop a mass, a critical mass, to make them become big. And we saw that with the Occupy movement. We see that with this movement, and fundamental change can happen because of that. I've always tried to do things. So after Freddie Gray in Baltimore happened, I started doing some panels on race at schools to try and raise awareness. I think also over time, my understanding of the problem has grown. I've been listening to the stories of Black Americans and what they deal with, which I will never deal with and never even consider. And those things sort of make you think, gotta do something. So,
well, you know, I must say that I was surprised by the response that we're getting throughout the country. I think it's important, and I think finally this one feels different.
Oh, I think it is. And I think the big thing is, this is really a generational shift.
Right.
This is young people doing a lot of the protesting and a lot of the organizing. And you know, you can't organize a national movement overnight. It takes years, and I think there's been a lot of people working really hard, organizing communities since Freddie Gray, since Ferguson, and little steps each time as we move forward that culminates in something like this.
Well, Dr. Tice, it seems like you sure garnered quite a huge crowd in a section of Houston that normally wouldn't have been, one would not have considered to have something like this.
No, I'm actually quite pleased with the turnout. There's a lot of allies here in Kingwood.
Yes, I can see. Thank you very much for what you're doing, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Berto.
Okay, that was Dr. Tice, one of the organizers, or the organizer of the event. He really got it going, and I was pleasantly surprised of the turnout. We were on four corners, and we had people stretched down each corner of that, the streets on each corner. People were stretched down. People had their signs representing whichever person they were standing for that got killed by the police officers. It was wonderful. But most importantly, if you heard what Ali Velshi spoke about earlier, we have to be ready. You have to make that change. You have to do it till it hurts. That is how we're going to get the change. Because again, the comfort zone, we've lived in the comfort zone for a long time to no avail, right? So we have to do what we have to do now. Now, let me tell you, my best part of the protest, you guys know what I do whenever I go to these protests. I put a camera in somebody's face. And this was no different. I always have a camera in somebody's face. And that's exactly what I did. And I want you guys to listen to these interviews. We do have allies, okay? My brothers and my sisters, my white brothers and my white sisters, my Latino brothers and my Latino sisters, my Asian brothers and my Asian sisters, they were all out there. And they had words to say. I want you to listen to the words that they had to say because it tells me much of where we are. So check this out and then we'll take it on the other side.
They've had some problems in other protests with people coming and heckling or trying to start confrontations. So I would simply ask that we not engage with people. Oftentimes silence is more powerful than words. Let's spread up and down the streets, all directions.
I just wanted to put my money where my mouth is and back up what Angela Davis has said about it is not enough to be quietly non-racist. Right now we have to be vocally anti-racist. We have to speak up loud for the people who have been trying and yelling and praying for help for hundreds of years and still haven't gotten it. So we need, as white brothers and sisters, we need to be out here supporting our black community and telling them we are here, we are speaking up, and we are there for them.
I'm so glad that this was organized, and I'm glad to be here to support it.
Black Lives Matter.
There will be a change. It's my first protest, and it's very emotional. We have to vote in 2020. I just say praise God for everyone who participated and who would like to, who's not here.
Black Lives Matter. The kids are the people who've fallen right now. And
Right.
as a mom, it means a lot to me to think about and make sure those kids are okay. Even though, I mean, there's so many people that this has happened to, and you don't look at the kids that are still alive and having to deal with all this. So as a mom, my heart goes out to those kids.
I am holding a sign for a 50-year-old woman who was mentally ill and was supposed to be taken to a mental facility, but she was shot instead.
The sign that me and my bro are holding is of Athena Jefferson, a 28-year-old woman who was shot in her own apartment after a concerned neighbor called. She was just playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew.
I've read online that people in Kingwood specifically keep asking why are we still out here, but I feel like you should change the question and ask what more have you learned about it and why aren't you also out here?
I'm here for George, and I'm here for everybody in this country right now. Your generation and the last 2 generations are rebuilding this country, and I'm so proud of you. And I'm just here to back you.
I'm a mother.
You're a mother. That says it all, doesn't it? That says it all.
There needs to be an open dialogue. There needs to be more conversation, put people in uncomfortable positions to make them say something and make a change.
I don't think it's right for George Floyd to be murdered in front of people because he didn't deserve that. He was a great man, and those police officers just did it anyway.
Botham Jean was killed in his own home. He was an accountant at Price Cooper Waterhouse, and a woman who was trained as a militaristic police officer mistook his apartment for her own.
Right.
And she shot him.
Grew up in my immediate family. We have mixed racial members, and I've seen what they've been through. I'm from the privileged community just because my skin is white. We all bleed the same color. We all deserve the same respect and the same opportunities. And I'm gonna cry now. I worked for the airlines. I'm retired. I traveled all over the world, and I've seen this happen time and time again in every country I've ever been in. And no one should be persecuted or disrespected just because of the color of their skin. We're all people. We're all interrelated. We're all brothers and sisters. It's time everyone realizes it, and it's time we band together and help one another.
My name's Holly. I live in Kingwood. I'm holding a sign for Tamir Rice, who was shot and killed by police for playing with a BB gun. This behavior is wrong, and it's not just wrong in Minneapolis or in Washington, D.C. or New York. It's wrong everywhere, and it's time that people in Kingwood show that we're upset too.
Professor.
Hello, I'm Steve Davis, and I've taught at Lone Star College since 1984. And it's just so important to be here this morning with people who have good hearts and who want to make a powerful statement. And we may be in Kingwood, but we're actually in Houston, which was the place where Mr. George Floyd grew up. It's so important to be here today and to pay honor and homage to him.
My name is Carl Matherly. I'm out here because any society that doesn't have justice for one of its citizens doesn't have justice for any of its citizens.
This has been a very well attended event.
The whole view, it was pretty good.
Yes, it's a very well attended event. Wow. Now folks, the sign that she's holding, that is prescient. That is real.
Black lives matter. And if you don't think so, it's time you wake up.
I just hope that people can realize that love takes work and we need to show our love. And that's a big thing, you know? Even in our normal families, we have to work at our love. And as a family, as a human race, we need to work on it.
That is prescient.
There's our future right there. Well, that's Penelope, my granddaughter, her best friend. And they got to have a future. We got to make it happen, man.
This time, it's almost like maybe it's just a matter, this is time. This is the time. And so we want to grab hold of that time and make it last as long as we can. And again, hopefully see some action from this.
Look.
So it's on here.
Black Lives Matter.
I'm learning about this. I'm not from here, but it's really sad. This was a mask done by a visual artist. It says I Can't Read. So Jesse Fezia. I'm here because I adopted my daughter from Uganda, Africa, and you know, over there, most of the population is black, and so having to come over here and teach her, she's been here in America for 3 years, about the racism. So I brought her over here and having to teach her about, you know, the heightened racial tension. Obviously it's gone on for, unfortunately, since the founding of our nation, but it seems to be exacerbated under President Trump. I can't understand what it's like to go through that, but one of the comments that stood out to me with one of my friends from Uganda, which is in Africa, for anyone who doesn't know that, is that over here in Uganda, we go to the police when we have a problem. You know, we're not afraid to go to the police when someone steals or someone whatever, and over there, like, you don't have anyone to go to if you're black, and that was really poignant for me.
I just want people to remember her name. Go for a job interview. She doesn't turn her turn signal on, and she gets pulled over, and she's dead, 3 days later.
Yes.
I just want people to remember her name.
I have two names here.
Yes.
This is Dominic Clayton. She was killed while she was sleeping. It happened in Mississippi. This one died of dehydration inside his cell.
Yes.
In Missouri. Black lives really matter, and we need to respect. We need to learn to respect and actually reduce the police brutality. It's very, very important.
Look,
to have justice, we need to treat everybody fairly, particularly our black brothers and sisters.
I'm here for Tatiana Jefferson.
She
was only 28 years old. She was shot in her home in October in Fort Worth, Texas. The police officer was charged, thank goodness, but that's very rare that that is happening, and that's why I'm here. Black Lives Matters, and we want justice and equality for all.
So I think it's really great that this was put together. My colleague put this together, and I think it's really important, particularly in communities like Kingwood, which are, you know, predominantly white, for this kind of message to be put out there, and it's being put out there in a really peaceful way, which is wonderful. We're getting all these approving honks, which is great, and yeah, I'm proud to be a part of it. I think it's particularly important that you know, those of us who are more privileged, you know, set the right examples for our families and for our communities.
I just was driving by through this intersection, I saw it, and I was just so proud of Kingwood, so I stopped. These people were kind enough to give me their sign, because obviously I wasn't prepared, but I'm just really proud to see my Kingwood neighbors out here standing up. I'm outraged that as a country we have still not solved the problem. You know, we are still seeing black Americans treated differently, brown Americans treated differently, and it's something that a lot of us in white suburban areas just don't experience, and we need to stand up and stand with our friends of color.
Excellent. I thought, in speaking to all these people, and I spoke to a whole bunch of them, it just gave one a warm feeling. And the reason why you got a warm feeling is because they are the seeds, they are the catalysts, they're the ones that are going to go into people who won't speak to me because they may fear what I may think or what I may say, or go to our brown and black brothers and sisters because they may fear how they come across. I mean, you know how peer pressure is. But those people that came to these rallies, who can have honest conversations, who have no fear because they understand the reality. They understand that pigmentation is crap. They understand that pigmentation actually has been used as a tool. They understand all these things, but the vast majority, based on what we were taught in this country, based on what we were taught in the Western world, they don't see it that way. So it plays this overbearing role on all of us, the overburden of race. Why? We know scientifically it is stupid, and even some who are educated know it is silly, but it just shows you the power of the ideological power. I have relatives who graduated first in their class, who have, well, we won't go there. But anyhow, so that was the extent of our rally. And one of the things that came out of that is, one of the guys that you saw in that interview, he extended what he had to say, right? And I didn't bring it up at all. I didn't bring up the issue of privilege or whatever, because that's not where I wanted to go with the conversation that I had with him. But he brought it up, and I said, okay, let's expand on that. And he went ahead and he did that. So let me go ahead and play that one for you, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I think it's really important, particularly in communities like Kingwood, which are, predominantly white, for this kind of message to be put out there, and it's being put out there in a really peaceful way, which is wonderful. We're getting all these approving honks, which is great, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I think it's particularly important that those of us who are more privileged, set the right examples for our families and for our communities.
I wasn't going to ask this, but I'm going to ask it since you brought it up. You said some of us that are more privileged. A lot of people like to take offense to that statement. Tell them why they should not.
That's a tough one. I don't know how persuasive I can be, but I'll just say I'm someone who grew up with tremendous privilege. I was born to, you don't have a choice about who you're born to. Right. There's nothing anybody has any control over. And I was fortunate to be born into really good circumstances, and I'm very, very, very aware of how I've benefited from them. From the household income that I grew up in to the color of my skin. These are not things anybody has any control of, and I think it's important that we have safeguards to mitigate against those contingencies. It's, for anyone who says like that, to take offense to that, it's not. I don't take offense to it, and I know that I'm privileged, and I don't see why. In fact, I don't see why anybody should take offense to it.
Thank you very much for your words, sir.
Okay, as you can see, you heard what he had to say. Oh, IBS Studios LLC. I normally handle all the comments later on in the show when I come near the end of the show, but I have to just address that. He's coming in from Periscope, and he says, wasn't murder and it ain't changing jack. Laughing my you-know-what off. Really? Well, we'll see about that, Mr. IBS Studio LLC. Actually, it was murder. And that young man, the police officer, is likely this time around not to see freedom in a very long time. And it's about time. Welcome aboard, Shane Van Winkle, also from Periscope. Welcome aboard from Periscope, Shane Van Winkle. Thank you for being here. He called himself El Gringón. ¿Qué significa El Gringón? Are you really El Gringón, my brother Shane Van Winkle? Anyhow, all those folks that are out there, they are what I call in Spanish, I'll say, ellos están en la ola. That means, hey, they are with it. They're in it, right? They know how things are. But here's the deal. I still find that I wish more people had that thing called empathy, where they didn't have to have something personal. It's, people, a lot of folks like to throw around the term racist and all of that freely, right? I try not to do that. And I want you to listen to this journalist next. Some people would call him that because of what it took for him to do it. But I mean, this issue is rather complex. I want you to listen to what he had to say. And, you see a lot of Republicans have this sort of experience when they make their turn to support gay issues or to support other kind of issues. Check this out. I find that empathy in this country is just too hard for some people. And I don't know if there are ways that we can get around that, how we can teach people empathy. This journalist said, after he wrote a pretty important piece in an article in the paper, he wants to ensure people don't do what he did.
David, I want to start with you. You wrote a pretty powerful sort of first-person essay, if you will, about what you've learned about institutional racism and how you attempt to explain it to white America.
I could sum it up in 4 words. Don't be like me. And by that I mean, when I first began to learn about terms like systemic racism or institutional racism, I kind of took it like a lot of Americans do as an attack. David, you're racist, or the employer you work for is racist. And I had a much more rosy view of what America was and what the American experience was. And then something very dramatic changed in our lives. We adopted a beautiful young girl from Ethiopia, and our family became multiracial. And our experiences changed dramatically. A trip to the mall, we couldn't guarantee was going to be routine anymore. A trip to the neighborhood pool, we couldn't guarantee was going to be routine anymore. And then we faced vicious online racism during the 2016 election. And what began to open my eyes was this understanding that, wait a minute, you don't take 345 years of legally sanctioned racism in a country that was often enforced by violence, remove it finally by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and then in the ensuing 56 years, solve everything. And where we can say, look how far we've come. Yes, we've come far, but we should also say, look how far we need to go. And the point of my piece was to say, and it shouldn't have to take having a multiracial family to reach that conclusion. We should listen to the testimony and understand the experiences of people and believe what they're saying about their lives and respond accordingly.
Now, I commend this journalist, and especially for coming out and saying, don't be like me, and trying to urge others to go out there and not depend on having to have a personal experience before they understand. I mean, I can empathize with what gay people are going through. That is the reason I was forced to change. It's the empathy that I developed. I can empathize with what women are going through. I can empathize, and as much as I am not them, I can empathize to know that I have to work as hard as I have to work with any issue that affects me personally. I know that an issue that affects them personally, I must be just as fervent for. It shouldn't take us a personal experience, which we will never be able to have for most issues that we support, to get us on the right track. But to that journalist, he did a good job in coming out and saying, forgive me, don't be like me. Exactly. Don't be like he was. Anyhow, folks, if you want to call in, the number is 346-248-3799. ID 254-600-991. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that into the feed here if anybody wants to see the call-in number. And, folks, if you're not, most of the feed will get information if you're in the YouTube, Periscope, or the feed at facebook.com/politics done right. All the others, I don't think immediately read it. Well, let me go ahead and put it into the watch party just in case the folks want to do it there. But anyhow, so what we have to do going forward, folks, is try to make it right. That empathy, everybody talks about empathy and of having it. You really have to work at that. Another, I was watching ABC last night. I think it was ABC or CBS. I don't remember which one. And there was this white woman that came on, and she was at the protest with her kid. They're kind of like, why are you bringing your kid to this, etc.? You know, these are COVID times, etc. And this woman, in a very short answer, I thought she had the best answer because she was honest about sort of the ignorance that she had but didn't know she had. And that takes some pelotas. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side. You know, black people, people of color have been complaining for a long time that they've always been mistreated by officers, that police officers just ran, pretty much darn kill them. That's just a statement of fact many times. And it was hard for people to really accept that. What's interesting, however, is that as people saw what occurred with George Floyd, it really, for those people who do have a heart, for those people who are really, can really develop some degree of empathy, they finally saw that it wasn't just a picture.
They need to learn that history takes hard work.
Heather Gerald is from Minnesota and says George Floyd's death there was eye-opening for her.
Even though I thought I was educated, I was not, and there's a lot of work to do.
It was eye-opening for her. We have a lot of work to do. History takes a lot of work. To my brothers and sisters, remember those words. I imagine she never thought that those words maybe meant a lot, but I think those are some of the most important words stated. She hit the nail on the head. And yes, she hit the nail on the head. You know, sometimes it's the most simple things that people say, the most honest things that come out, the one that just comes off of your head, where you're not really going through thinking to machinate exactly how what you're going to say is going to be interpreted. I want us to reach that stage. I want us to reach the stage where we don't have to sit down and judge everything that everybody says, whether that means they are prejudiced, racist, homophobic, or whatever. I want us to reach to that stage where we're allowed to make mistakes and understand that, you know, we are victims. I use this victims loosely. We're victims of our upbringing. I wrote a piece, and you know what I should have, before I go any further, before I go into the next video, which bring in Robinson, I want to find a piece that I wrote. And the reason I want to bring this piece up is because I think there is much that we don't really see, and it's actually the Ali Velshi piece that I did. I said that I found his piece very good, right? And but here's what I said in there, because I think it is so important. Let's see if I can find it. I really need to find it, so bear with me. Ali went to a point of problem. Let's see if this is the article. I think this. Oh, okay. Here's the article. I said, yes, Ali points out, like many others, that unless we name the problem and lean into it until it's uncomfortable, until it hurts, we're not doing our job. I'm talking now about the previous video that I played with Ali Velshi, where he said he was talking mostly to white people and saying you have to lean in, you have to lean in till it hurts. And a lot of people sit down and say, okay, well, you know, I wanted to point out that, you know, personally, Egberto Willis, I had to do the same thing too. I try to show that humanity is pretty much the same, just a lot of times on different issues. And I don't want to talk about the gradations of wrong or the gradations of what's evil or not. I said the following: to get rid of my biases, one has to be intentional. As a black, Latino, Caribbean man, the homophobic bias, the homophobic hate was instilled in me from the beginning of my existence. When I saw the light of my hypocritical, hateful, immoral idiocy, I made the mental change. It was not until I leaned in, forced myself into gay issues, gay understandings, get over the awkwardness, did I rid myself of the scourge, not only from the mind, but from the heart. White Americans must go through that catharsis as honest and as honest with themselves as I had to do with myself to overcome what was not anybody else's problem, my problem. I'm going to repeat that. White Americans must do that catharsis as honest with themselves as I had to do with myself to overcome what was my problem. I was the ignorant one. I was the one who didn't realize that I was wrong in the thought process. In my prejudice, I was wrong. Yes, I had triggers from the way I came up in life. That's what I learned. That is what I was taught. That's how I was reared. But once made aware, once enlightened, once given real data, once doing these issues and finding out that you were wrong, the most important thing one has to be is humble enough with themselves to say, I was wrong. And yes, I cannot change on a dime because there's something within the mental process within humanity that doesn't quite allow that unless you immerse yourself into it. That is one of the good things about integration, right? And that with the young kids that are coming up, they're all together. So they know that they are all the same. Now, later on in life, because of externalities, they may use it as a weapon, but they know we are all the same. Many others didn't. But when informed, they have to, as Ali Velshi said, lean in till it hurts. And I tell you something, brothers and sisters, I tell you something. Of your life, I'll be very honest with you. There are all kind of terms that folks use when we're describing people. And let's specifically say gay people. And every so often, I find myself maybe using an unacceptable term. I mean, not a derogatory, but an unacceptable term. Because again, muscle memory and other things that leads that way. And you know what? I turn around, forgive myself, move on and say, well, that little recess, that little piece of the cancer is still right there. And then you extricate it till you reach to the point where it's not a part of your being, humanity. So I think it's important. I think it is important for us, those of us that are the ones that are aggrieved. I think a lot of people get on my case when I say this. I think we have to give others space. We need to give others space. Those who really want to change, we have to give them space to change. And I think this is we're in the perfect spot with all that is occurring. Look at the polls with folks finally saying, oh my God, it is real. In as much of many times I was willfully ignorant. I couldn't be this time. Many times deep inside, I know I was willfully ignorant about gay issues as it was happening. But there was something that made you force. In my case, it was speaking to a very intelligent partner heading to China on a trip, business trip. And when he said that, and I sat in that plane and I thought about the way my being, why? And then after I was done beating up myself for having been stupid for 20-something years, then I forgave myself and I moved on and said, I couldn't be that anymore. And we have to do that with ourselves, and we have to give others space to do that. Anyhow, part of the title of the show today was The George Floyd Murder is Changing White America and Black Professionals. And what do I mean by that? Let me go ahead and play a Black Pulitzer winner, Mr. Robinson, and then we'll take it from there on the other side. George Floyd's murder has changed a whole lot of things, including allowing or giving black journalists the freedom to really express themselves, things that they've been going through. And you know what? It's a great thing. Check this out.
Sometimes you look at it, feels like we've made a lot of progress. Sometimes you look at it and it feels like we've made hardly any.
My early years were under Jim Crow segregation in South Carolina. So those are my earliest memories. There were playgrounds I couldn't go to. There were roads that my father would not drive down because it was Klan country. What's heartbreaking, though, yesterday at my house we rewatched the film Selma of the famous Selma to Montgomery March, and the scenes of those protesters being attacked on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It's so resonant today. And you watch something like that and you can't help but be disheartened and say, how much have we changed? Have we made the progress we flatter ourselves in thinking we have made? And I come back to what Reverend Sharpton kept saying at the memorial service for George Floyd: get your knee off our neck.
Let me tell you why that is important. It's not important that he's saying what he says, but who he is. Because what happens a lot of times is America, the majority of the population in America would see somebody like Robinson and other professional blacks out there, and they'll say things like, if he can make it, why is it that these others can't? And they don't really see the systemic nature of what occurs of racism, what occurs in this country. That some were able to percolate to the top does not say that the masses, that the masses are able to do so. And when people see that he has a personal story where he had to overcome as well, harder than any other person would have to, they can start to learn how to empathize. Because what happens is sometimes people who are successful presents the formula or presents the excuse for those who otherwise can develop some sort of empathy to empathize. And that's what's more important about these personal stories. When they're abstractions, it's not very effective in changing positions, but when it becomes a part of that story, it is. Absolutely so, folks. Absolutely so. Look, we are coming close to the part where I need to go and check out what you guys have written. But I have one last video I want to show you, and this is with Cory Booker. And one of the what made the video happy for me is near the end of the video where he's pretty much telling protesters, stay in the streets. This is the time of change. And it's not going to be Biden who makes the change. It is you who's going to make the change. I want you to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side. Then I'll come back and take care of the messages on the other end. So here we go. Anybody who wants to... Oh, well, there's somebody waiting to talk. I'm so sorry, folks. I should have looked at that. Come on. Let me get you in first. All right. Let's see. You're on. Come on in. Oh, they hung up. They hung up. Okay. If you want to come back in, just give us a call back on Zoom, and we'll take you on. Let me go ahead and play this now, and then we'll take it back from there. Let's see. There you go, and go for it. While it is true that I generally have some issues with Cory Booker because of pharmaceuticals, etc., Cory Booker really understands the nature of the country, the nature of what ails it. I want you to take a look at this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Where should most of this change be enacted? On the local level or on the federal level?
It's got to be enacted on every level. We are a society where we are culpable. We have created a nation distinct from any other on the planet Earth. We incarcerate the plurality of the human beings incarcerated. 1 out of every 3 women on the planet Earth that are incarcerated are here in America. We've taken so much of our treasure. Between the time I was in law school to the time I was mayor, we were building a new prisoner jail every 10 days. And explicitly and complicitly, we all have made a decision that we are going to treat mental illness with prison, jail, and police. Addiction with prison, jail, and police. Poverty with prison, jail, and police. And overwhelmingly, African Americans with prison, jail, and police. We now in America have more African American men under criminal supervision than all the men that were slaves in 1850. This is unacceptable. We need to be more courageous in our compassion for one another, more imagination that we can create a society that's not so over-policed, or where we don't tolerate certain tactics that have had a generation in fear. You said at the beginning of this that 80+% of Americans think this country is out of control. Well, for Black people in this country, we've thought this country is out of control in the way it polices our communities and individuals for a very long time. And this awakening is so important to create real, substantive change, not just lip service from politicians. If there are protesters listening to this show, I just pray, and I want to say to them with all sincerity, stay on the streets in your nonviolent protests. Stay demanding change. This is not a referendum on one person in one office. This is a referendum on who we are as Americans and who we're going to be to each other. This is a moral moment. Will we become a more loving and compassionate society, not with our rhetoric, but with our laws and our rules and how we treat the most vulnerable? And so this is that moment that I think Joe Biden can be the president for, but the responsibility is not on any individual. It's on all of us.
And that is what we have to keep in the back of our heads. The responsibility is on us to make the change. And if you notice what he said, stay on the streets. You staying on the streets, you continuing to protest, you forcing the politicians' hands. That's what you've got. These guys don't want, the plutocracy doesn't want ever-ending protest. So eventually, they will start to cave. They will start to say, you know what, politicians, maybe you should listen some to the people, but no, we're going to force them to listen all to the people. But so if you listen to the words of Cory Booker, he hits the nail on the head. I so wish he would take some of that into some other aspects of the people that supports him. All right, folks, I think it's about that time where I go ahead and talk to my people. Michael Rudnin, actually, let me get to the top. But first, let me see if there's anybody that came on. Rose William, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome aboard. Let's see who else is new. AVQ's been here. We have two from Periscope that I can see. Shane Van Winkle, who calls himself El Gringong. You know what that means. And IBS Studio LLC, are you still here? I would love to talk to you. If you're still here, actually, it would be nice if you give me a quick call, because I'd like to go over why you think it wasn't murder. I'd like you to kind of tell me the steps that make it not murder, because I always like to learn. Okay, we have Michael Rudnin, AVQ. We had Dan Engelstad, who gave us a super chat today. Dan Engelstad, thank you so kindly. Dan describes himself as, I am an old white guy, and George Floyd sadly didn't shock me. So many others have died. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. Dennis McLaughlin, hi from Philadelphia. Hi, my brother. Come on in. If there are 10,000 bad cops arresting minorities for nothing, inflicting brutality, shooting unarmed men, and otherwise doing dirt, and you have 700,000 good cops who stand by, do nothing, when a majority of them should be called in to investigate and fire those bad cops, then you have 710,000 bad cops who have failed their duty to purge the corruption from their ranks. Rudnin, I could not have said that any better. You're absolutely right, Mr. Rudnin. Because that is I've always been prefacing what I said with, most cops are good. I don't know if you've noticed I've changed my stance where I said, no, most cops are not good. But we just want them to do a job, and we have laws that we need them to abide by. And we don't care how good, how bad they are. As long as they're following the law, that's fine. As long as they're doing their job, that's fine. The job has a description, and we have the law. Do the job description and follow the law. I don't care if you're a good person or a bad person. And by the way, that law has to change to show that if you're watching an officer abuse somebody and you don't do something about it, you're complicit. Norman Reynolds, hey everyone. Michael Reynolds said, reminds me of a meme. Yes, all lives matter, but we focused on black lives right now. I like that, Rudin. That's a good one. Jose R. Gamboa, I don't think I mentioned you before. Saludos, hermano, desde Houston. Hola, mi hermano. Gamboa, tú sabes que hay una ciudad en Panamá que se llama Gamboa. All right. Lawrence Sims, interesting. What happens next? Dan Engelsfield again. I am from Tacoma, Washington, and have black friends and worried for them all the time. You should be, and that's why you need to be out there. And it seems to me, given that you are here on Politics Done Right, my brother, and not only that, you just invested in making sure Politics Done Right stay alive. That is great, my brother. Michael Rudnin, Lawrence Sims. I haven't read the bill yet, expecting that this will be a top story of the next few days. Yes, it will be. I haven't read the bill either, but I'm probably not going to read the bill initially because there's a lot of markup, and I don't want to. Time is limited, brother. No knock warrants, kind of a long Rudden. I'll read that later. Michael Rudden says, just to be clear, there have yet still no charges have been filed against Breonna Taylor. Oh, I didn't notice that. I thought by now they would have. Thank you for giving me that information, Senor Rudden. Lawrence Sims says, move it to Donald. Let's see, what is that showing? Tribute Democrats take a knee from. Okay. There's a huge discrepancy. This is Rudden. There's a huge discrepancy between how police act in white neighborhoods versus various minority neighborhoods. Just go to New York, and it's not a north-south thing either. In New York, they were arresting black and brown people left and right and giving face masks for white people who did not have face masks on. I think the behavior is shameful, but, that's the America we live in, and that's the America my white brothers and sisters, my allies, our allies are going to be in the game helping fix, not only fixing from the law, but fixing from within the heart. Okay, let's see. Rudden, ignorance is a temporary condition remedied by curiosity. I like that. Is that yours, Michael? When people change their minds about a wrong-headed idea, we progressives have to be willing to forgive them. Some of us have a hard time with this. Look, brothers and sisters, progressives or otherwise, we're all humans and none of us are perfect. I've made so many mistakes in my life, and the first person that had to forgive the mistakes that I've made is myself. So, Rudden, you're absolutely right that we have to learn to forgive ourselves. I mean, we have to progressive must forgive others. But what I like to tell others, forgive yourself. I've been in places where people say, Egberto, I can't say that because I've been to a place, we're talking minority issues, and a white person will come up to me and say, Egberto, I want to say this, but I can't say it because I am white. Do you agree with me? I'm like, yeah. And then she says, well, could you say it? I'm like, hell no. You go out there and say it. Then she says, oh, but they're going to be all over me if I say that coming out of a white voice. And I said, and take it. Go up there, and some of these people are going to tell you, they're going to give you a hard time for saying what you're about to say. But you know what? Take it. Say what you mean and take it. Later on, after people say things, you're going to be very well respected because they're going to know what's in your head and that you are going to go over the rocks with them because you're willing to do that. And she did. It's important, A lot of white people come into these spaces and they'll say things like, I don't want to say that because of how they're going to think about me. I'm like, no, go say it. And if you say something that they think is wrong, let them talk to you about it. And if they're going to hit you up about it or give you a hard time, take it. I tell you that as a black man, as a Latino, as a Caribbean man who go into places and take it. People have complete preconceived misconceptions about who I am, who many of us are. We take it. And in taking it, we make the change. Please always remember that, my brothers and my sisters. Okay, Rose says, certain measures are worrisome. Suspension of habeas corpus, New York, making filming police illegal. I like that. Michael Rodney, yes, that one's mine, though it's partially paraphrased from something Neil deGrasse Tyson said. Hey, copyright doesn't matter in that case, brother. Copyright says if you change something enough, it changes, brother. Okay, Norman Reynolds, with or without video, all police are free to kill based on the Graham defense. Given the society's disregards for POC, that it is open season on POC until we change it. And that's what the law, this written law, has in there to change. Okay, Ren from Periscope, new Periscope user says, you heard they are disbanding the Minneapolis police, which is crazy. I am so sad that the disbanding, once again, I think progressives are using a terminology that needs a bit more explanation. Could I have come up with something better? I don't know. Let me just tell you, Ren, they're not disbanding police they're not disbanding your security. They're not disbanding your security. In other words, whenever a police department is changed, whether it is defunded with a little bit less money, with monies going elsewhere. In other words, we're not sending. Why should we send cops to a mental issue? Why should we send cops to issues that don't require somebody with a gun and a taser and all that kind of stuff? That is what we're talking about. Right-sizing police to what it is meant to do. Just policing. But I can see where the confusion comes up, because I had a couple of activists on my show, and we did just that. We talked about that. Anyhow, folks, we're at the end of the show. I'm going about a minute late. Please remember to go to our store, store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, and support our program. Get a t-shirt, get a mug or something. Here we get. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, is my book. You learn about the economy. You learn a whole lot of stuff in here. I promise it's very easy to use. And you kind of learn a little bit about my early days when I played a little bit of guitar and played in a band, salsa, and all of that good stuff. And as you know, I always fight the weight problem. I wrote a book called Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. I sell that all at our store. And the reason I sell it at the store is to try to raise some income to keep going with Politics Done Right. The story of, for those of you who are new, my story is I gave up a software company to do this full time. That's why I'm now not a money person anymore. I just do this because I thought this is something that needed to be done. Gave up a lot for this, and you guys have made it worth my while, however small. So I thank you very much, Michael Rudnin. So folks, you can also get our cup. And also many other things. Check out store.politicsdoneright.com. But what I'd really love from you all is for you to subscribe to our show. It's easy to subscribe to our show. Just simply go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, and I have that on the screen right now. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Alternatively, you can go through PayPal. Our PayPal address is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. Again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright. So again, that is paypal.me/politicsdoneright to contribute, or if you want to become a subscriber as well. You can go to subscribe at Politics Done Right by going to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That's patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Start at $1.99. You can buy Politics Done Right a cup of coffee, right? $1.99 is what it starts at. And of course, shop at our store, store.politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is store.politicsdoneright.com. And I forgot, as usual, to turn this on where I have the store online. Folks, I know your time is valuable. I do appreciate you spending this time with me. Please share. Please make sure other people see this, because that is how we're going to change. We can cover things that otherwise aren't covered. So please make sure to share. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.